Hey, everybody, welcome to the second hour of the Santita Jackson Show on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. The voice of progressive Minnesota. And if you want to see this conversation, you can do that too. Go to the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel, the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Click the bell so that you can like and subscribe and get notified every time we go live. We don't want you to miss any of this conversation. We're looking at the Michigan primary, and something extraordinary is happening there. Something extraordinary is happening there. You've heard members of the Arab American community who have been saying, and young people, and black people, and brown people, and white people, two-thirds of the American public have said we want a ceasefire, not a pause, but a ceasefire. And we want conditions on the money we give to Israel because we cannot abide what's happening there right now. We can't abide it. And we certainly don't want to pay for it. So now Michigan or Michiganders are being called to do something extraordinary in this Democratic primary. They're saying, look, you don't have to vote for Biden. You have to vote against him. But what you can do is you can either vote for Biden or Dean Phillips or Marianne Williamson, but you can also vote uncommitted, which means you're still voting for the Democrats. You're just not committed to a candidate yet. Let us be mindful of the fact that as we looked at the Biden's landslide in South Carolina, there was 14% participation in 2020. That's not a lot, Daryl. But this time, there was only 4%, Daryl Jones, Transformative Justice Coalition. So something has happened. Enthusiasm has been dampened, and people are also feeling very disappointed, particularly in this policy. There's something about what's happening in Gaza that has galvanized America. So let's talk about it. Everybody, stream us on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Meet me on the Santita Jackson and Friends Facebook page. But please like and subscribe on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. And of course, tell everybody about AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. We have got a tremendous panel today. One of the top political operatives in the Democratic Party and really in American politics for the past 40 years has been Livonia Perry. She's an award-winning radio and television host, college professor. There have been so many spaces where she has seen, touched, and felt us all and taught us how to communicate effectively. We've got Dwight McKee, one of the founders of Operation Push, very active in Operation Breadbasket, part of the National Action Network today. He's the dean of the Ma'afa Redemption Project, working with young people, our first young boys and young men, and now they're moving into young girls and young ladies to redeem them, to bring them into the human family so they can know just how important they are. And we've got probably the foremost voting rights advocate in America, along with Barbara Arnwine, the chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition, Attorney Daryl Jones. Of course, you can hear him and Barbara Arnwine on WOL, that iconic radio station in Washington, D.C., but you can hear them everywhere. WOL in D.C. every Tuesday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. But I want this young man to lead us off before he goes. I wish I could keep him Livonia just forever and ever and ever because he's
Yes.
it's like we're so proud of this young man, Jonah Karstrom. If not now, it's a group of young Jewish activists who are fighting apartheid wherever they see it, but particularly in Israel. But they're looking for justice here, and they're fighting for it here in the United States. And I have such admiration for young Jonah and for these young people who are standing on principle. Sometimes they're excluded from their religious congregations. Sometimes they become estranged from their families because of the principal stances that they've taken, and yet they stand strong and they fight for the least of these, for those who are not considered somebody. You just said something in the second hour during the break, and the first hour during the break, about looking at Reverend Jesse Jackson and seeing I am somebody, and what does that prompt in you?
Yeah, what I see in it is a reflection of the values that I want to live as a Jewish person. Even though it wasn't said, Reverend Jackson, of course, isn't Jewish, but it's inspiring, and it's also it's a political mandate for the kind of world we want to see. When you see Reverend Jesse Jackson, your father, go to a jail or a prison and lead the people there in saying, "I am somebody," you know, that says to me that our human community, that when we say justice for all, there are no exceptions there. We mean everybody, no exceptions, period. And Palestinians, unfortunately, for far too long have not been included in that human community in the eyes. There's a great political operative named Walid Shahid in the Democratic Party who says uh, Israelis and Palestinians are equal in the eyes of God, but not in the eyes of our government.
Mm.
And that's the problem. That's the problem. Is that we are not able to see Palestinians as fully human, and it's clear to me and my generation and to my Jewish values that that's a moral issue. But President Biden also has to understand that for him that's going to be a political issue, and that's what this campaign in Michigan is about. Is to say, if we can't make you see that Palestinians are human beings, that the bombs need to stop dropping on them, and that we need to stop funding it on moral suasion alone, we're going to go to the ballot box in Michigan and vote uncommitted to send a message to say that this is not acceptable.
What will voting? How will number one? How will that work, and what will that do?
Again, I'm not an expert on this, so please, double check any claims that I make here. But my what I know for pretty sure is that, there's going to be a box on your ballot just alongside everything else. For Joe Biden, Dean Phillips, Marianne Williamson, there's a box that says uncommitted. And if you're a Democratic primary voter, you can fill in that box and get a little feedback.
Hmm.
We good now? Okay,
we are good. Absolutely.
You fill in that box, vote uncommitted, and what that does, my understanding is that it leaves some of the delegates in Michigan uncommitted to any candidate and could actually make an impact at the convention. That's my understanding of how it works. But even if not, it's a way of saying, beyond just protesting in the streets, electorally, that we have issues with the direction that Joe Biden is taking on this. And rather than staying home, sitting out of the political process, we're going to go to the polls and tell him how angry we are about this and that he has to change course.
Hmm. Do you see this spreading to other states, or morphing into something else as we move toward the fall, if heaven forbid, if the policy does not change?
I'm not one to make predictions for the future, other than to say that I think that the people that I'm in movement and community with are extremely serious when they say that Joe Biden needs to change course here. And I think that people are going to be doing what it takes to make that happen.
Well,
Yeah.
what message would you like to leave us with, Jonah?
I mean, I don't know how much more I have to say than I already have. I mean, it's about we've been saying ceasefire now. We've been saying stop the genocide. We've been saying stop funding it, and those can sound like catchphrases in the street. But what if not now, for is a future of justice and equality and democracy and human rights for all Israelis and all Palestinians. Period. No exceptions. That's what this is about. For us, and about a collective humanity that we all share, about how the trauma that our Jewish community has gone through for so many years, culminating in one of the bloodiest genocides in the world, means that we say never again, not for ourselves, but for anybody, or not just for ourselves, rather, but for anybody. And especially when it's hard, especially when people that are sometimes our family are part of supporting this genocide in Gaza, that even more now we need to stand up and say never again for anybody, and for a future of collective humanity, because we know that there's enough room for all of us, that a better world is possible.
And you're willing to work for it. I mean, and so this goes beyond the election for you.
Yes, this doesn't stop. If not now's ultimate goal is to end Israeli apartheid and work towards a future of justice, equality for all Israelis and Palestinians. That's on our website. I'm quoting directly pretty much from the mission statement. So this isn't just about ceasefire. This is about stopping the bloodshed now, so that because the status quo pre-October 7th was not anything to be happy with either. We existed long before October 7th because we understood that a system in which Jews and Palestinians in the West Bank, for example, live next to each other, and Jews have the right to have the vote for the government that controls their lives, have electricity and water provided by the government, and meanwhile the Palestinians that live just next door to them have none of those rights, have to bring in water on tankers, have limited electricity. That's apartheid, and that it's not okay, and it has nothing to do with the Jewish values that we believe in.
Before you go, I mean, some people are saying that your actions are hurting President Biden. And that is the bigger problem. What do you say when you face that criticism?
Again, what I'll say about that is that President Biden has brought political consequences upon himself by supporting a genocide in Gaza and by funding it. And we are giving voice to the concerns that people have about this policy. If President Biden wants the backlash to go away, then he needs to change course. He needed to change course months ago. And we are Jews who have been victims of a genocide that came about as a result of fascism. We understand the risks, and I can say personally that I want nothing to do with the fascist future that we might have in this country if Donald Trump is elected. But Donald Trump is more likely to be elected if Joe Biden doesn't change course on this. That's what we're trying to say.
And fascism, quite frankly, Dwight, and Jonah, thank you so much. Everyone, please follow If Not Now in social media and keep up with them. They're doing a lot of great work, and we cannot wait to hear more from you because you have a lot of thoughts on poverty, on education, on a whole range of issues, and I cannot wait for you to be on this platform and lift your voice and address those issues as well. Sending you so much love today, Jonah.
Thank you for having me, as always.
Absolutely, as always. Okay, Livonia? I think I'm trying to figure out why we have an echo. Why don't you sign out and come back in?
I sure will if I can. If not, everyone have a good day. I'm gonna give it my best shot.
No, I'm just gonna let you sign out. Okay. And then you can come back in. Dwight McKee, this corporatocracy is neither Democratic nor Republican. It's just, the Democrats and the Republicans protect the corporatocracy, not the other way around. It seems that people are moving toward principle-based politics. Not everybody, but some people, not party-based politics. What say you about this Uncommitted campaign?
It's not even as much principle politics as it is survival politics. It's you talking about situations that are life and death. So beyond just the Gaza-Palestinian fight, you're looking at what's happening in Ukraine and what's happening with Russia and NATO, and that if that continues to explode, and you're talking about Russia putting satellites up in the sky, debilitating the grid, and sending the world into social chaos. That's a life and death situation. You're talking about the environment where these Arctic ice caps are melting, and the sea now becoming part of the shore, and all these houses falling in the ocean in California, and the ice caps melting in Canada and in Alaska, and the storms that are hitting all of the coast at the same time. I mean, you're really talking life and death situations. And so for a lot of these young people, as they look at what's happening in the world, this is beyond party, beyond principle. It's really about survival. And so, they are not swept up in Democratic or Republican. They're swept up in who is willing to help really save the planet and redeem the time.
What do you make of this Listen to Michigan campaign? It has a very urgent title, Listen to Michigan. I mean, greatest concentration of Arab Americans in the United States is in Michigan. The mayor of Dearborn, Michigan has said, look, you're missing the point. We're not going to vote for you if you don't change course. I don't think you understand this. And their response is, but Trump. That's not working. I mean, and for many of these young people, that's not working, but Trump. For many people, for the AME church, that's not working. For the 1,000 Black churches, that's not working. And on, and, I mean, and the numbers are growing. The numbers are growing. But it seems, first of all, what do you think of the campaign? What do you expect to see? Do you think it will gain? If Lavonia Perryman, who'll be back up with us in a minute, renowned radio and television talk show host in Detroit, has said that this is gaining traction all over the state. This campaign, she said, it's not a campaign; it's actually a movement. Help us to understand the difference first between a campaign and a movement.
Who's that question for?
For you.
Oh, well, one is based on political expediency and political politics, party politics. The other one is based on the spirit of the times. One really operates more from the bottom up, and it's really more based on, is more personal. Movement is much more personal because the issues that you deal with, you see more as life and death issues. So you're much less prone to compromise on the issues. And so one of the reasons that playing the Trump card is so ineffective this time around is because for a lot of these people, this is not based on who's going to be the president. And they're not afraid of Trump being the president or not being the president, and Biden being the president or not being the president. It's based on whoever is willing to stop the killing of innocent people. It's based on who's ever willing to look at studying war no more. It's based on, so when they say that Trump says NATO must go, for a lot of them, they don't see that as a negative. They see that as, NATO being one step away from World War III. And when Trump says that he wants to pull out of NATO, they don't see it as the same way as the democratic machine sees that, which is some violation of some public commitment to maintain the status quo of Europe. They see it as the same situation which existed in World War One, when because of these alliances, when the Archduke got killed, all of these alliances forced the whole world into a world war. So they don't see it as a bad thing. They don't see isolationism as a bad thing. And so it's beyond whether or not your candidate wins or loses. It's who's willing to really take the positions that is ultimately, as they see it, going to save the planet.
Daryl Jones, what are you saying? And what are you hearing? Because you also talk to young people as you're registering them to vote. You're engaging with the voters quite heavily.
Yeah, no, Santita, you're absolutely on point. What we do and where I'm focused is on the voter that's 18 to 35 years old. That is the world in which I live, in which I operate with voter registration and voter engagement. And a large part of what I think Dwight has laid out and what Jonah has laid out is very accurate in that the young voters are committed. There's a commitment that's there to their principles. And I think that when it comes to Gaza, it's one of those things where in Gaza, the young voters can so easily see themselves. because of the age of the young person that's in Gaza. Again, that the average, the 40% is under 15 years old.
Mhm.
So, the young voters see young people. When they hear about the bombings, they realize that these bombings are killing young kids, and that there are principles that are being just destroyed with regards to understanding that the 18 to 35-year-old voter in the United States is the most diverse voting base. It is the most accepting voting base. They don't care. The religious differences aren't going to divide them. They're going to be more tolerant, more open. They're going to be more willing to want to work together for a robust democracy. And what they see happening in Gaza is the antithesis of that. It's the exact opposite of that, and taking out these young people from the Gaza area. And so, as a result of that, you're going to see them doing what you see Jonah and If Not Now doing, what you see happening in Michigan with the Listen to Michigan campaign. It's all about, if you're not going to hear us, right, we're not going to listen to you. We're not going to vote for you. We're not going to support you if you're not doing what we're asking you to do. And if you're asking like you don't hear us at all. It's a situation where, where when people don't feel as though they're being heard, why should they speak? And they speak with their votes. Why should I speak if you're not hearing me? If you're lying to me, why should I speak? If you've made promises to me that you don't keep, why should I speak? Those are the issues that I hear amongst the 18 to 35-year-old voters. And a large part of what we encourage them to do is to run for office, because it's their voice that's not being heard. So when I look at what's happening in Michigan, the question at this point for the Biden administration is, are they going to hear what the people are saying? Or are they going to ignore them and continue down the road they've been going, figuring that they can just take it for granted that they're going to vote for them because you're not going to vote for Trump. You're going to vote for President Biden because you think he's the lesser of the two evils. I think that's a very dangerous road to go down because, again, with African Americans, we've been there, right? Folks realize that they've survived through a Trump presidency. They survived that. They survived the Biden presidency. So when you start putting all of that together, Michigan should be very concerning to the Biden campaign because of what they stand to lose. And for the young voter hopefully will continue to push forward with that vote. If they're voting uncommitted, I don't know if the uncommitted vote goes into the general election or not, but certainly it does for the primary. And they're going to send that message to President Biden that, after next Tuesday, after their election next Tuesday, you got, 8 months to get this turned around before November to earn our vote back.
Absolutely. Stay right there. I'm going to try and do a little house cleaning on air. And let me get this way. Let me bring you on. Okay, what I need you to do is sign out completely, and then come back in. Just sign out completely, because you're in two different windows. Okay, so just sign out completely and come right back because we want to hear your voice. Just sign out. Just log out. Okay. There we go. Just sign out completely, and then what we will do, just close out. There you go. And then she can come back in. Dwight McKee, it seems like some people, I had a very dear friend years ago. He said, sometimes people need to touch water to know it's wet. He said, I'm not that guy. I know water's wet. And I'm wondering what is it that the Biden administration is not getting? You had 300,000 supporters of the Palestinian cause march in Washington, and then a few weeks later it was 400,000. You got the mayor of Dearborn, Michigan. You got the Arab American leaders in Michigan. And this is a very well-educated, very prosperous community. And they had a very contentious meeting in Michigan. And it's like they still don't get it, Dwight.
I
What
don't think I don't think it's an issue of not getting. I think it's
they're
an issue that they've already decided that they're going to co-sign the Netanyahu strategy, and I think they are complicitous in making sure that the Middle East stays grounded as an American extension of American foreign policy, and they maintain the control over the canal, and they maintain control over the oil, and they're able to maintain American empire, which is dependent upon controlling the resources in that area, and that they are using the Israeli, and the Zionists as a tool to be able to control that, to control American supremacy and Western supremacy. So I don't think it's a matter of what they ain't getting. I think it's a matter of what they ain't gonna do, because they understand the necessity of having control over that area of the world. Uh, and all the protests in the world, and there's been protests all over the world, is not going to have them change their mind about that.
is there anything? Well, where do you see this going then, Dwight? I
Uh,
mean, and I
oh,
ask you because I want to let the audience who might not have heard him, because part of the incredulous crew was you, and that's not to call you out, but it just seemed so way out there, right, Daryl? Dwight said 4 years ago, Trump ain't going nowhere. And if by chance he loses, he is going to stay in office and he's going to set up a parallel government, and he did do that. um, and this Trump thing is real, y'all. You kept saying that. There's so much that he said. Everything that he said has come to fruition, Daryl. We're witnesses to that, are we not? And it sounded crazy, incredible. Chaparral has joined us, one of my producers here. But Dwight McKee, where do you see this going? Put on that hat, Carmack.
well, I think that really the Democrats don't care if they win or lose, believe it or not. I don't think it's important I think that, for the party, so at the congressional level, maybe it may be important for them, and the mayoral levels, senatorial level. But for Biden, for the administration, I don't think it's that important if they win or lose. I think as long as they're able to try to stabilize the American military operation, that's going to be the priority, even if it means losing the election. Uh, I don't think, like I was saying, I don't think Biden is tone deaf.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they have a commitment, whoever is in office, whether it's Republican or Democrat, to maintain the control of the Middle East by any means necessary. And whether it means, supporting Israel over genocide and losing the election, or whether it means, maintaining those bases, trying to make sure that they don't take care of the ships as they try to go through the canal, whether it's maintaining the Saudis, that they keep control of the oil in the Middle East, that they control, whether or not they are democratic or undemocratic. None of that matters as long as they're able to maintain the oil interest and the power, the military power that that controls the Middle East, because this whole country's economy is built around having cheap oil, and they're going to the whole economy is built around that, and they're going to maintain that by any means necessary.
So this is about the corporatocracy, not about the democracy. I'm saying
No,
that kind of cheap,
no,
right?
has very little to do with the democracy. Very little. This is about corporate interests being maintained here and abroad.
Mm. Well, we have got Chaparral Wells, my producer here, political science student. And indeed, if you go to The Intercept, She has a podcast, Daryl Jones and Dwight McKee, that's been downloaded more than 2 million times. She's spoken at the South by Southwest Festival. And it's an award-winning podcast, and she is a woman of great moment and with a tremendous voice. And you wanted in on this conversation, and I'm so glad that you did, and that you do. What's your read on all of this?
Well, I definitely agree with Dwight on all of this, Santita. I think that the Democrats have made a decision to not even try to win this election. This is their election to win or to lose. And they have made a calculated decision to let it go. Because they hear the voices, they hear what people are saying, they see the protesting, and they have not made a decision to listen to what the people are asking. What they're doing right now is playing Russian roulette. It's like they have those 6 bullets, and one of them is filled, and the rest are empty, and they're just pulling the trigger, pulling the trigger, pulling the trigger, and they're hoping that Black people will continue to go out here and support them. But this time they're gonna get shot in the head. And I'm sitting up here waiting for them to have this egg on their face, because we have made these calculations. But I'm trying to tell everyone this is a new set of youth that we have, and they are so disenchanted with the way the government is being ran, and they don't, like you were saying, it's about what they're feeling right now. When we talk about the Biden economy, a lot of people are saying, oh, it's good. No, it's not. Rent is $2,000 a month for the average person. Student loan debt is over $50,000 for the average person. You have food prices that are over $600 a month. People are barely scraping to live. And so when you think about it, I don't care what the unemployment rate is. I think it's a farce. I think that the unemployment rate really doesn't gauge what's really happening in America. And people can have a job, but are they living? I could afford to pay my rent, but can I eat? I can afford to pay my rent, but do I have gas and light? Do I have toilet paper? Can I wash my clothes? These are the real life issues that everyday Americans are experiencing. And we see that more and more people over 21 are now back at home with their parents. You know why? And they have full-time jobs because they can't afford to live on their own by themselves. And so when we think about what type of economy and what type of America that we are in right now, we see that the Democrats are taking us for granted once again. And Biden is waiting for us to say, hey, I know you're going to vote for us. Who are you going to vote for? That's what he's saying again. Are you actually considering Trump? No, we're considering third parties. Just because we don't vote for you doesn't mean that's an automatic vote for Trump. And people say, well, you're wasting your vote voting for a third party. But I'm voting my conscience. I know I'll be able to sleep at night knowing that I gave my vote to someone who cared about the issues that are important to me. And I may not win this election cycle, but if I vote for them enough, eventually they will get enough electoral votes for us to win and take over this two-party system that this government has. And so I think that right now the mindset in people my age group and people younger are like, let's take down this two-party system. And that's by any means necessary. We know it's going to get ugly. We know that it's going to be difficult, and it's okay. We're willing to sacrifice this 2024 election as a test run, but to show the Democrats and to show both sides, we don't need y'all. We finna do something different. And they're going to see that those independent numbers are going to actually increase in this particular cycle. And they're not going to vote for either candidate. And that's what we're going to see, Santita.
And rather than let's change the policies, Vera, the strategy is to keep the policy, but do everything you could do to decapitate Trump. Is, and so they're doing everything they can do by hook or crook to make sure Trump is either in jail or neutralized or it's illegal for him to run. But the strategy is they're going to maintain the policy by any means necessary and focus on getting Trump out of the race.
Do you how would you feel, Chappelle? And I'm going to kick this to the whole panel, but Democrats are primed, Daryl. But I want Chappelle to answer this first because she is out in a way I think that many of us are not. They're going to blame Black people, because you hear it already on the front side, Daryl, which is if Black people would only vote. I'm like, don't insult me. Black people over-index in the vote, particularly Black women. We vote. We have been voting. You have not been coming through for us. You need to go to these other people who you've been losing. Don't come to me with that. But that is going to be the line that they're going to use, Chappelle. It's Black folks' fault. We never get any credit, but it is always our fault. What say you?
And that's probably going to be the case. And if they come and ask me, I'm going to say, what have you done for me lately? You promised me this. You promised me George Ford Justice and Policing Act. You promised me the Civil Rights Act reform. You promised me student loan debt elimination. You promised me. So what did you do for me? So they can blame all they want, but the buck's gonna stop with you because you didn't fulfill none of our promises. You did everything for everyone else, but when it came to us, you were deficient. And so we have every right not to support you. It would be different if you did everything that you said that you were going to do, everything that you promised that you were going to do, and then we reneged on our promise to you to continue to support you. But you didn't do nothing. And not only did you do nothing, you thumbing your nose at our face. And you telling, you know that you could sign the executive order. You could still sign the executive order. And the executive orders are actually going to help you. The executive orders that we're asking Biden to sign, we understand, we're not, naive. We understand that it's only going to last the rest of his term. We understand that. But what we're asking him to do is to show us that we are important to him. And what he continues to tell us is that we're not. Because he continues to make excuses after excuses as to why he cannot fulfill the promises that we asked him to do. So he wants us to continue to show our support and get nothing in return. I'm not going to do it. And he will learn the hard way.
Daryl Jones.
Yeah, I think that Chappelle makes a really, really good point when it comes to what has the administration done to support Black voters. And clearly, there's some things that they have done. Right? We know there's Ketanji Brown Jackson, Justice Brown Jackson, that's been appointed to the Supreme Court.
I need you to be a little louder, Daryl. Speak a little louder. Just speak a little louder.
Can you hear me now?
Much better.
Okay. We know Ketanji Brown Jackson is one of the things that has come from as a result of the administration. We know that there have been more Black federal judges appointed to the bench than ever before in the country's history. That's come from the administration. We know that there have been historic amounts of money that have been given to the HBCUs. So, there are things that the administration is doing that is positive and certainly has benefited the African American community. But one of the things that the administration has not done, and that we were pushing for the last beginning of his term and continue to push for, and that is in dealing with voting rights and dealing with voting rights reform, with the Freedom to Vote Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, to be certain that the right to vote is not being messed with across the country, as it is all over the country. And that's one of the foundational pieces to everything that goes on. And to the degree that we cannot get the administration to commit 100% to, whether it's an executive order or just taking the lead and pushing for voting rights, that would be consistent across the country, particularly when it comes to the community of color. That's one of the biggest things that we have going on right now, where the administration has been somewhat silent. There's Kamala Harris, Vice President Harris, has started speaking on it some, but not full-throated endorsement, not a full-throated push. One of the things that we're going to be having, that's going to happen during the Selma Jubilee, is that we're going to have field hearings in Alabama to talk about the voting rights issue and what's happening in Montgomery and Selma in that regard. But much of what Shapiro is lifting up, meaning, this is the foundational piece for the African American community and the community of color: voting rights. What are you going to do? If we're stuck in gerrymandered districts where we cannot elect members of Congress that will best represent our interests because of the way they're configured, that's problematic, because that's who's going to be in Congress. That's who's going to be in the U.S. House of Representatives. That's who's going to be in the U.S. Senate. So we're not going to be able to get our policies through and our voices heard. So a lot of that, I think, is all wrapped in to this deafness, if you will, this lack of hearing what we're saying, what we're asking for, and what the community needs. So, whether we're talking about the Gaza question with the funding and the weapons that are being given to the Israelis to kill the Palestinians, or we're talking about the voting rights or any of the other issues, we're not being heard. And if we're being heard, we're being ignored. And that's even a bigger problem, Santita.
Dwight McKee.
Yeah, Daryl, we've been heard, we're just being ignored. Because again, like I said, that their goal is to maintain uh, imperial power over the Middle East by any means necessary. And the strategy, and it seems that at one level to be working, is to decapitate Trump so that he don't win. But whether he gets out or don't get out, the policy is going to stay the same. And if 100,000 Palestinians have to die to maintain their control, then so be it. And that's really what you're looking at. You're looking to have no problems with this ethnic genocide and no problem sending the weapons over, both to Israel and the Ukraine, to maintain Western control, white supremacy in the Middle East and in Europe.
Shapiro,
That's
hold on, Dwight. I only have about 8 minutes or so left. Shapiro, when you hear that analysis, which you've heard from Dwight McKee and a few other people before, because it is a profound analysis, it is about the corporatocracy, not the democracy. Do you agree with it? How does it make you? How does that impact you?
Well, I think that it is the corporatocracy, as well as also is blatant racism. Right now, I was just looking on TikTok, and one of the Justins from Tennessee said the Ku Klux Klan marching down in Nashville. So this white supremacy is roaring its ugly head once again in America, but now it has full-blown support, and it's like we're the clock is being turned backwards, and we're having to realign ourselves, refight, and try to establish what we already won. This is 1968 all over again. And here we are sitting up here fighting for voting rights, fighting for stopping for voter suppression. Why are we still talking about this in 2024 if we won it in 68?
But you know what, Shapiro, maybe we need to understand that the struggle continues. Victory certain, but the struggle continues. Our foreparents ran their leg of the race, and some of them ran more than one leg. But we have legs to run ourselves, because freedom is one, which means you're in a contest and you got to fight for it. Do you think we understand that, Shapiro? That the fight never stops?
We're beginning to understand that the fight has not stopped, because they have basically put in some new reserves, and we got to get our people off the bench. We got to put in a whole new team. that come in here and get in the game. And so what we're seeing now is these young people are coming out and they're ready to get in the game. But they have a different approach. And we have to, people who have gone through the struggle, we have to also support them in their new approach. We can teach them something, and we can also be willing to learn something as well. So we have to support them too, Santita, in the way that they're approaching these things. And they are staunch on this social media and getting these people out. They have these ad campaigns and TikTok and Instagram Live, and they are hitting these streets. But we have to help them in order to get them to the table with the right people. And I think that right now, I was listening to the show yesterday, and I was like, okay, where is Black Voters Matter? Where's that group? I see Daryl Jones. He's out here forceful. But where is Black Voters Matter? Where is that group? I haven't seen them in a while. I haven't heard them.
No, they're out here. They're out here. They're just not getting on camera.
Exactly. What I'm seeing is that the silencing, just like what we're seeing, they have, and it's the Democrats that have begun to silence the Black media. If you see that from Steve Harvey and all these, they're not even talking about this voter suppression issue. Who's talking about it? Santita Jackson.
And look what happened.
You see what I'm saying? But I'm being very serious. I hear it on Rolling Mark.
And I thank you, AM 950 Radio, for keeping me on there.
Black media, and you know what I'm saying is the voice of Black media. With this law, Joe Madison, you know, our Black voices in the media are being silenced. And we already know historically the Democrats have not pumped money into Black media.
Wait a minute, and I was on a Democratic station.
Yeah. And they have not pumped money into the Democratic stations and to feed the people, and they don't give money on the streets. So I feel like the white said, they really don't care about our vote. They don't really want it. Because if you want it, you're going to go out there and you're going to fight for it. You're going to do whatever it takes. You're going to grease some palms. You're going to pay them people to go door to door and knock for you. But they're not doing that. So they are content with us not going out here and voting for them. Because if you want me, you better come after me. Because I like attention and I like to be courted. And I like to be, I like gifts. I like all types of things. To show that you care about me.
Yes. Wait a minute, Daryl and Dwight. Ask Mr. Wells. She got him working day and night. Wait, I told you the easy girl loses in the courtship game. You can't just give it up to people. There has to be, you have to have requirements for my love, for my vote. And you can't treat me with contempt. You can't tell me that if I'm Black, I gotta vote for you, and I can't be Black if I don't want to vote for you. You can't do that. You cannot do that. Look, I have about 2.5 minutes left. 1 minute for you, Daryl, and 1 minute for you, Dwight McKee. And when you hear my voice, that means I gotta get out of here. Daryl Jones.
Well, Santita, thanks. Let me tell you, I'll be very brief. And I tell you, the biggest thing for us right now is to be certain that we're being heard and being respected, our voices being respected, and we're holding the people that we vote for accountable after they get on office. And, I heard Chaparral make reference to Black Voters Matter, and I can guarantee you that wherever TJC is, Black Voters Matter is right beside us, and there are places that we're not. So, we're all out there in the trenches fighting this fight for the respect of the Black vote and the community of colors vote. But, we've got to continue this fight. We got to continue to hold them accountable, and we got to continue to register and get people elected that will best represent our interests.
Dwight McKee, 1 minute.
The head of Blackwater came out last week and said that we need to recolonize the whole world, Africa, South America. And he's gotten $4 or $5 billion for for his mercenary army from the American government. This thing is about the American empire and about who is going to control the resources of the world. So they don't care if we vote or not, y'all. This ain't really about democracy. This is about power and who is going to wield the power. And so it's way beyond, whatnot. We put together a strategy to deal with Biden or not. They've already got a strategy. One about hook by crook, that they're going to use the United States government to be in the military power of the United States to make sure that they maintain Western superiority around the world. And against the Chinese and against the Russians and whoever they see the threat as.
Understand, everybody, it's not about the democracy, it's about the corporatocracy. That goes beyond being a Democrat, it goes beyond being a Republican or an independent. You have to decide, and you have the power to decide the kind of government you want, and more than that, the kind of world that you but need and deserve. We are somebody, and we deserve to enjoy the bounty that God has given us. But we're the ones who have to make the decision, and we're the ones who have to make the change. The government is run by our consent. So when you consent to something else, consent to peace and not to war. Consent to love and not to hate. I'm Santita Jackson, AM 950 Radio. God bless you.